Welcome to the House of Azor podcast. I'm your host, William, and joining me today will be Derek.
Hello.
And Sean. And on this episode, we'll be discussing Spider-Man Far From Home. It's not Spider-Man, it's Spider-Man. Spider-Man Far From Home. Mostly because of timing and everything, where we have been not having a lot of extra time, and it's just a fun movie. So we figure we'd have
this is not a crawl podcast.
Yeah,
we did not have time to see that
because alligators are bad.
And like I've gotten the AMC program where you can get certain movies, so I've seen a lot more movies this year. Mm-hmm. But then I know you run to this, and we were like, you can only see so many because I can't live at the theater.
Yeah,
so I pick and choose which ones I go to. And it's like, you can't see them all.
Yeah, I saw Spider-Man and Midsummer like back to back, and then have not had any time to go see Crawl because, we're recording this on Sunday. Crawl came out like, Thursday or Friday, but just have not had time to see that. And then we do two back to back, so next week we won't have it for next week either.
Yeah, I mean, it's too because there's all kinds of stuff going on, and too, my work is being hectic again. So I thought I was going to have a down period, but nope, back to being busy.
Yeah.
So it's just like life keeps slapping us in our faces.
And then, I don't think I've actually got able to watch Stranger Things. You all haven't.
No,
so I've been watching that.
Yeah, because I'm about to do an episode on that, but I haven't had a chance to watch more than one episode.
I think they're all like an hour
and
long.
Then it's trying my hardest to avoid getting spoiled for it on social media.
I've already heard kind of stuff that happens at the end. I don't.
Well,
I'm not looking for it, but I'm okay.
Well, the funny thing with and this goes back to Game of Thrones too, because I don't have any problem with that show. I just never watch it. Don't have much interest in it, But when you were on Twitter on the night that the episode was going on, there was no spoil. With Avengers Endgame, you got at least a solid 2 weeks before there's any real spoilers that are out there in the masses.
I mean, a few people spoiled here and there.
Yeah, but it wasn't with TV series, especially with something like Stranger Things, where it releases all at one time, you got a day.
So it came out the day before the 4th.
No, it came out on the 4th.
On the 4th, I just remember it came out, and then within 2 days there are already people spoiling stuff from the last episode. It's who in the hell? I mean, I guess when I was in my early 20s and single and had nothing really going on in my life, I could watch a show all in one day if I wanted.
Or if you're like me and your job requires you to get up at 3:45 in the morning and you still get up that early on the days that you're off and you have nothing to do for 4 hours, you'll watch half the season one day and then half the season the next. Because by the time I get up and I've watched it, it's 7.
Yeah, I wish it came out the day before just because or a couple days before. Because on the 4th, it's okay, well, I'm not really going to, I work from home. I'm not really going to work today, but we're going multiple places because it's the 4th. We're going swimming over family's house and stuff.
Watch it
I'm I have no time to watch on the 4th actually because we're not just sitting inside, we're outside.
Yeah, because we were, for the 4th, we went to our parents, and then the next day we went out of town.
Yeah,
so I didn't
same
have time.
here. We were busy all weekend.
Yeah. I got to watch it because I was off those Thursday and Friday, so I get up early. So I watched it early and then winded. So
I do wonder, if Netflix would have more conversation around their shows if they release them, weekly, or maybe just release it in batches. Because the way it works right now is a lot of people are kind of reluctant. The people who are decent when it comes to spoilers are reluctant to talk about a lot until 2-3 weeks after it's aired, just to give everybody time to catch up. As opposed to Game of Thrones, people the day after were all about it. So I do wonder.
I've seen people equate Game of Thrones and stuff it's much like a live football game or something. You know what I mean? It's okay because you expect that with that because it's live. Stranger Things is different because it's okay, even if it's live, okay, people may not have 7 hours to get to the 7th episode to start talking about it. It's a weird thing.
We live in an interesting time for TV too, because the two biggest shows that I can remember in the past 2 decades, post Friends and Seinfeld, those are over. Would be
Game of How I Met Your Mother and Big Bang Theory.
Well, it'd be Game of Thrones and Stranger Things, because there's 2 shows that
I think if you pare it down to stuff that people in our spheres talk about online.
Game of Thrones encompasses people from 12. I got guys at work that are 60 that watch Game of Thrones.
I mean,
so it's everybody.
In terms of pure viewership numbers, The Big Bang Theory and some of the CBS shows still beat those shows in terms of pure
they're
viewership
not the
numbers.
Event, though.
Because they're either procedural shows or they're comedies where they have some story beats, but they're largely not serialized storytelling.
Nobody's really passionate about Big Bang Theory.
I don't know.
I mean, they probably are, but not on the same level as they're not. What I would say is Seinfeld and Friends were culturally significant.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what
Big
you're
Bang
saying.
Theory is not.
Well, 'cause
culturally
when you go
significant.
back to-
CSI Miami,
Well, I
is-
think the only reason it's not maybe on those levels, and I'm not a big fan of the show, is only because viewership is fragmented because there's so much more options now. Back then, you know what I mean? Most of America.
like,
in the Seinfeld era, you had the major networks, and then like a few straggler cable networks had stuff, but mostly it was the big like ABC, NBC, Fox that made the shows everyone watched because they had the big production value and the big budgets and the big stars. And it was, but now you have how many cable networks with amazing stuff going on and streaming services and just so much stuff. Like, there are things I want to watch, I just haven't gotten to in 2 months.
Yeah. I just think it's really interesting to see how something like Game of Thrones, and because I wasn't as into that as you all were. I've never watched an episode. I've watched like half of an episode, and I like I said, to me, it's like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. It's not the same, but I've never really been interested in that stuff
just
as much.
the sort of fantasy.
Yeah, that's not my thing. But now Stranger Things I do like, and there's other shows I've watched that I've gotten to too, like Dexter and different stuff. But it's just really interesting to see the cultural impact, because like Big Bang Theory, I don't know if it's going to have the legs that Seinfeld and Friends have, because that still comes on every day when we go to lunch, and and you're watching 2 episodes of Seinfeld, 2 episodes of Friends.
TBS will be shoving it down everybody's throats as long as they
Big
exist as a
Bang's on
network.
a lot on TBS.
It is on a lot, but I just don't know if it's like, maybe I just don't like it that much, but it just doesn't seem like
Honestly, I don't think the quality's there, and
It's not.
and people love it. Yeah, but I've watched some of it, but I just think it's not as special or as kind of groundbreaking as Seinfeld was. You know what I mean? Like Friends is also big, but Friends is also sort of comfort food. It was something that everybody watched in the 90s.
Friends was just
early
a very
2000s.
formulaic TV show that just got the right people.
It was
involved.
consistent. Yeah, it's like just the cast, and that's people feel that way about Big Bang Theory, but. It's almost like Big Bang Theory is a rehash of Friends on some level. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the first time, and not Friends was the first, but it was the first huge time something like quite like that. Cheers was its own specific thing.
Yeah.
Seinfeld, like, they all had their specific space, and now these are just even further variations, even though sometimes those were variations of things.
Let's get into our
Yeah,
30-minute
so
conversation about Frasier real quick, and then we can
So back to Spider-Man Far From Home. So yeah, the new series of films, so Far From Home and Homecoming, so both have home in the title, were directed by John Watts, who had directed the film Clown that we had previously reviewed. And then what's funny is, so you have, in terms of the films that are being successful financially and well-liked, so the Sam Raimi series, of course, Sam Raimi directed Evil Dead 1 and 2 and Army of Darkness and Darkman and a bunch of other stuff. And then the new series are directed by John Watts, who has a horror background. So it seems like a horror background helps you out when it comes to Spider-Man films.
I will say, though,
500 Days of Summer, what's that director's name?
Mark Webb. Those are the movies that did not go over super well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, they said, we want to have somebody that's really good at the relationship drama, which was, for me, I thought, that's a smart bend because, that's what matters the most. But it's interesting. Those didn't work out, but yet both these horror directors, worked out in the relationship stuff.
well, I think
y'all were talking about the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Yes.
I think some of the problem with that too is like Tobey Maguire. Something about him, he was a good nerdy Peter Parker, but he wasn't a good Spider-Man because he wasn't quippy and super energetic. But then Tom Holland is probably we've had 3 of them, so I think he by far is the overall best. And I don't think Andrew Garfield.
By far?
Yeah, by far.
I'm just wondering.
And I don't think I've watched those, and to me, Andrew Garfield just doesn't.
Well,
it has never really worked. I mean, I'm sure some people feel differently, but
yeah. So like with those movies, I think part of the difference is
he's too cool in the movie.
Because he was like this guy who could be a male model. Who was, I think.
I mean, okay, to be fair, Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland.
I mean, here's the thing. Everybody is an actor, so they obviously have some type of look that people like. But the point is, when they made Peter Parker, it's like, why was he picked on? It's like, oh, that handsome guy who's dressed well and he's funny. He's a nerd because he's got glasses on. It's like, well, even the glasses look good on him. Damn it. But like his thing was when... I think all you have to say is like the moment where Peter Parker gets bit by the spider and has his powers, and he gets back at Flash Thompson. In the Andrew Garfield movies, he dunked the basketball in a really fake looking way in the gym.
And then Tobey Maguire,
really...
he punched him across the room.
Which already it was and it's the Joe Monticello guy or whatever,
who was also probably like 78 when they filmed that movie. So
he's in his 20s, probably.
He was.
Tobey Maguire,
like 60 now. He was like in his 30s when they filmed that.
But
he had like.
I think that the thing that I think something that hurt those Amazing Spider-Man films is the same thing that hurt Spider-Man 3 is they were trying to shove these villains in that the directors may have not really been all that interested in dealing with, because Spider-Man 3 was one, in retrospect, not nowhere close to the worst superhero film, and not even, not the worst Spider-Man film. And I think it ages. I think it plays better now.
For me, I only watched the first one, and for the first time, I saw like 10 minutes of Amazing Spider-Man 2, and was thinking, ugh, like it was not good what I saw.
Peter Parker's parents were spies, and they genetically engineered him.
The scene I saw was between him and what's her name, Mary Jane, who plays MS.
Mary Jane.
Oh, it's Gwen Stacy. Emma Stone.
Oh,
yeah, there's no Mary Jane in this one.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway,
she was.
I watched the first one. I don't remember hardly any of it. But anyway, the scene between them was not working for me. But the Spider-Man movies, at least Sam Raimi in this one, this series, I mean, the biggest thing is they just have a sense of fun and playfulness about them. And Amazing Spider-Man, even if they were trying that, I don't remember specifically, they never gave me that sense. They never pulled it off. If they were trying to have that sense of fun and playfulness and kind of light.
I feel like, too, that was during the post Nolan trilogy.
Yeah.
Or maybe some of it came out during, I can't remember. But I think it's one of those things where like that was when everything's everything's going to be a little darker, a little more grounded.
A little grimdark.
And I feel like those Spider-Man movies were a little bit grimmer. And something that, and maybe Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, I haven't watched in a while, but like one thing I really like about Far From Home and Homecoming is they don't, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, they look like kids.
Yeah.
Like they look, even though like now some of them are in their 20s, they still don't put them in so much makeup.
If I was out
like
in public,
Zendaya and Tom Holland look like they are.
But like you said, maybe he looked a little bit old for Spider-Man 1, being in high school. But by 3, it's like, I mean, he was older then as far as like the timeline goes. But like, what are you going to do? Tom Holland's already looking older. Like in Avengers, he was already looking old. You know what I mean? Like he looked like he was like
he's looking like
in the
an
middle
old
of college
student.
Yeah, exactly.
But
I'm saying old for him being now a
16.
senior or whatever they are.
I think he's still like a sophomore. So it's one of those things where like this is the first time they've done Spider-Man movies where they've kept him in high school for more than like half of a movie.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good idea. But then you run into but they still look much younger in this because they probably are than like Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire were, and the entire cast, James Franco. And
but then here's what happens though, and this would be really, just emblematic of the times. You could have an instance where you have your lead character that's supposed to be 17, and they're really like 24, and then you pair them up with a romantic lead who is 17, and it's like, that's kind of that's scandalous. So I mean, I think most times you would just get somebody who is over 18 as well, but so overall, Far From Home. So this movie will require us to even discuss it, have spoiled Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
Because for this movie to even exist is slightly a spoiler in and of itself. And getting more than 2 minutes into the film requires a spoiling of everything that happens.
To be fair, if you've seen a trailer for it, you have already been spoiled.
So if you haven't seen that film, if you haven't seen Endgame and you're interested in knowing what happens, and I'm getting it spoiled for you, you might want to wait to listen to the rest of this episode until you've seen said film, because we all have to spoil that from the get-go.
But they've been on social media or just alive. It's been spoiled.
My wife has no idea what happened in that. No.
Because
nothing,
maybe I
at all.
get targeted for more stuff on that because I like it. But like on Instagram and Facebook and stuff, I get it just, huge spoilers they show in the commercials. And it's
so from this point forward, we will have spoilers for Avengers Endgame, and then we won't spoil the actual Spider-Man film until the end. We'll announce we're going into spoilers because I think there's a lot of stuff for this movie you want to avoid knowing going in as well. And I think too, some of your mileage may vary depending on, do you know anything about the comics, like how much you know about some of these characters, or are you just a movie only fan, in which case I think you might be even more want to specifically avoid spoilers.
Honestly, I think we could probably say, did we all enjoy the movie?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I really enjoyed the movie. So, I mean, just duck out if you haven't. You know what I mean? Like, like that's all because.
Well, like in the movie, Jake Gyllenhaal was very fun.
Yeah.
If you saw Okja, he's like a way toned down.
I saw somebody say, it's like he's on level 9 out of 10 from Okja. I feel like he's on level 4 or 5 compared to that movie.
Even look at his character Nightcrawler from that movie. Like
he's not
on that level.
And I thought he was going to be like, I was like, oh, is he turning into our next Nick Cage where we can expect at least have fun? You know what I mean? With his role. But he was not at that level in this. He was good.
Well, I think people have said if you watch Okja, Velvet Buzzsaw, and this, you just get a lot of different shades of him that you didn't know that you were getting from that actor 10 years ago when he was in The Day the Earth. Day After Tomorrow.
Well, it's just funny.
No, that wasn't 10 years ago. That was like 15 years ago.
Yeah, it was just kind of funny because he's one of those actors. I think at first, like he just seemed.
I mean,
like
Bubble Boy.
You
could see that. You could see that and notice, like, okay. I mean, it's a straight line from Bubble Boy to Okja.
Bubble Boy is a movie that is
because like his big breakout was Donnie Darko, and then you had the other stuff, and then I think what was the cowboy movie?
Brokeback Mountain.
Brokeback Mountain was when he made like the break for okay, I'm going to do serious work too. That's going after not that some of those movies weren't serious, but like this is awards bait material, Oscar bait movies, and then. Also, since then, has mixed it up in big franchises like Spider-Man, because, he was somebody when they were making Spider-Man 2, I think there was some, like, filming schedules that overlapped.
Maguire got hurt some, too. And then
so Tobey Maguire didn't necessarily want to come back unless he got a pay raise, I think. And then he was filming the movie Seabiscuit and hurt his back, so his back was hurt and he maybe not been able to film. And then they were courting Jake Gyllenhaal to possibly step in as Spider-Man.
Because Kristen Stewart wanted him because they were dating at the time or something.
And then Tobey Maguire worked it out and was able to shoot. And then they even worked a little joke into the film about his back hurting when he like falls and hits his back on a car. And he's like, my back. So they worked that into the movie on a meta level.
Sam Raimi was probably cracking up at that joke. I could see him.
And Tobey Maguire's like, damn you.
I will say like something that the Sam Raimi and the current iteration has, like they have a certain, like, I don't know, I like it. They feel kind of like, even though, like, because obviously studios are much more involved with this than it was. Because Sam Raimi had a lot of Sam Raimi-ness in those movies. I mean, you had the Bruce Campbell stuff, especially in Spider-Man 2 with all the arms for Doc Ock. Like,
the Evil
there's a lot
Dead,
of stuff
sequence
that's very Sam Raimi. And these movies, I don't think if he was doing it now that he would get the free reign to do something.
Well, it's not even just the free reign, it's the having to fit into the MCU. You know what I mean? Like
but this one,
and then we know the third Sam Raimi one, was the issues arose from that was all studio.
What I like about this movie is this, you just came off of the Avengers Endgame, which was, everybody together. Then you come in this one, and if all the Marvel movies for now kind of pull in to just do singular character stories for a little bit that still have like enough connections to tie them into the MCU at large, I'd be much happier with that, where it's not always pushing.
Well, I think
I'd much rather get to see a couple movies that push character narratives instead of pushing the big movie narrative.
Well, something I think that we're going to see, and I've seen this discussed other places. So the fallout from Endgame. So like I said, spoilers for Endgame, when they bring everybody back 5 years. So 5 years after everyone is snapped away, they bring everyone back to Earth. This movie made it
bring everybody back. It's kind of like Dragon Ball Z,
whatever. But the point is, and there's a lot of serious implications for that. And this movie is mostly played for jokes, so I don't think they're ever going to do any type of examination of what that did to the cultural psyche. Because in the beginning
and why really, why are people coming to see these movies? Not for that.
Well, I think it's just, I think it's doing the classic comic book thing of kind of making these huge things with very to little no ramifications in the universe.
You say that, but the entire reason this movie exists or the plot of this movie, the entire overarching stuff is because of something that somebody did. So I don't know if that's necessarily a fair statement, because
my point is
he's talking about like a serious examination, not just.
I'm just saying
but it won't be with Spider-Man.
Well, so here's the thing: this isn't necessarily a problem, because this isn't necessarily what I was looking for these films anyway. I think it's just a general statement that, based on what we've seen from Far From Home, I don't think that any of the individual movies are going to touch on a lot of the fallout or ramifications of anything, which in turn often makes their in the future not have a ton of stakes for things, because if you're going to walk back wiping out half of the population across all existence and there's really not too much fallout when you undo it, then what could you possibly have happen next where there's real stakes? And that's not a huge problem. That's what comic books do.
I mean, the real stakes are the characters dying that we love. You know what I mean? Like, really, half the population did we really care that much about half the population getting wiped out in those movies? No, we cared about the people that disappeared. Everybody was like, oh no, Black Panther, oh no, Spider-Man. Nobody was like, all those thousands of people in Japan. You know what I mean? Like,
because like the one thing that
nobody really cares about that when you watch
the children.
Because narratively, they didn't, when they did the snap, they only focused on the heroes. They didn't focus on the rest of the world and kind of sell you on. They don't,
that's because that's not why we're here.
No, but like the only reason I'm doing this is because they are relatively the same, because there's 6 Infinity Stones and there's 7 Dragon Balls, and like Dragon Ball Z probably did a better job of like selling the implications of doing that stuff back.
Well, yeah, because Dragon
Ball was a long series too.
And Dragon Ball Z often killed off
a lot of people,
individual characters, and/or the population of entire planets, and then they would bring them back.
Yeah, but like with this, it would have been better if there was like actually shots of like when the snap happened. If like it just showed. Like the Hawkeye scene at the very beginning of Endgame, like that would have been effective if it showed a lot of that. You know,
yeah, but the movie was already 3 hours.
No. I'm saying,
you know what I mean?
But like, you know what I'm saying? In Infinity War, like when it happened, if they just went through and did like a real quick thing of just showing normal people doing their daily lives, like.
But I think too, it's also how
that wasn't the point of the movie.
You don't want to make that. You don't want to make The Leftovers and make it a very somber drama. I mean, like there needs to be swashbuckling fun. But I mean, my point wasn't to say that. I'm just saying in the future, I didn't expect that or really hope that they were going to go too deep into it. But they very clearly shown that I don't think they're going to examine the fallout of any of those prior films in any significant way. I mean, they made jokes in Far From Home about when I came back, there was somebody living in my apartment, or my wife pretended that she was included in the movie they called The Blip. Yeah. It's like my wife pretended like she was in the blip and left to go off and be with someone else. I mean, there's like little things. And he's like,
we
had
a funeral. Look, here it is.
So they have like little things like that, but they don't actually go in depth to like, well, what would happen if you come back and someone's in your apartment? Like they've owned it. I think
probably what they'll do is they could also incorporate some more villain plot lines of people coming back, or because planning over those years. You know what I mean? Like that's what I think they could.
That was one of the plot lines of this movie.
Yeah,
and then so far every Spider-Man villain has had issues with.
Well, so I guess before we get into spoiling the stuff in this movie, like giving it a score out of 10. Once again, the scores are subjective, and I wouldn't say that giving this movie a score of whatever means it's comparable to Midsommar, because they're such different types of films. Which actually, the more I've thought about Midsommar since the last episode, the more I do like it and would probably want to revisit it. Because sometimes the more you think about something, the more it kind of increases.
Yeah, I just really love that film.
But giving this movie like a score out of 10, just in terms of like a popcorn fun film, it's like 8-9, like really fun. Now on multiple rewatches down the road, some of that could, because whenever you have a lot of these movies, once you know the story and you go in, I have seen where people found some pretty cool little Easter eggs that like hint at what's going on in the movie before things happen, but you have to like freeze frame it and watch. And like they got confirmation that, it wasn't them just thinking that somebody it actually was, like the real actor was like filming scenes and stuff. So we'll discuss that later. But so it was really fun. Definitely better than the Amazing Spider-Man films. And, probably the best live-action Spider-Man since Spider-Man 2 back in 2004, which I still may have as my favorite as a series. I'm not really sure, but, it's definitely like one of the best ones they've made in a long time, and a good standalone film for Spider-Man that gives you a lot of what the prior movies didn't. In terms of villains and stuff happening, it gives you the more comic book version of Spider-Man interacting with different people and all this stuff happening, versus, like we said, like the somber, grim dark, or to the other thing in those movies is like Andrew Garfield did so much bumbling around in the dialogue delivery, which I think was probably how he was directed, with Emma Stone's Gwen Stacy. But this one, is more upbeat and fun. So yeah, I give it like an 8.
Yeah, I'm at a 9 out of 10 on it, and it's a great summer movie. It's one of those things too where. And we talked about this with Endgame and Infinity War. Like I keep waiting for where I'm like, okay, I have fatigue now. I'm fatigued of the MCU. I'm tired of the MCU. I want a break. And you see Endgame, and it, for me, it's like, okay, I'll watch a couple of the older movies, and it made me interested in it again, and made me excited for it. And then this comes out, and you're like, okay, I'm really excited to watch it. And you see it, and it's like, I'm still not fatigued on it yet. And obviously, the general audiences aren't either, because it's going to.
I saw somebody tweet, I don't know who it was, some director, and they were like, they're like, fatigue isn't a real thing. It's only like a succession of bad movies. You know what I mean?
And I think
fatigue
you're
will
right.
never set in as long as they keep making great movies. You know what I mean?
And I do think you're 100% right. I will say this is probably.
I never thought about it that way.
I haven't either.
It wasn't me. It was a director. But I was like, I could kind of
No, you're
see
right.
that
I mean, because I
perspective.
think, the fatigue probably does set in when you, like the X-Men franchise. There's
Yeah.
X-Men fatigue because the last couple
Yeah, I
ones
think
haven't been
the
good.
fatigue is just due to bad movies. I
But
don't think
you
people
still-
get upset if they see a string of good
Yeah,
films
like,
that they enjoy.
But we've also
Having such a
seen
good
like,
time.
yeah, and I do think that's one thing Marvel's been really great at. Because like now, I've seen a bunch of discussion whether like Spider-Verse was the best or this. Where I'm at with that is, do I think that Spider-Verse is a overall better movie than this? Yes, it is. Is it a more fun movie to just sit down and watch? No. Because I think that movie to me is such an experience because it sells like Miles Morales' story and all that it's probably not as fun just to sit down and watch if you're just because it takes a little because I rewatch it. The
Well, I
other
think-
day.
Yeah, but I don't
it's
know.
slower.
But I think
and
it's really fun, just
it's
visually,
fun, but it takes,
and the music.
But it takes like an hour to get fun.
Well, I think a different-
I think it's fun right out of the gate, only because
Have you rewatched it?
Yeah, I watched it. A few
Yeah,
times.
because I watched
Yeah,
it on
Derek.
Netflix and it's like I don't know. I'm just,
Yeah, no, I bought it when it came out, and then I rewatched it, and then my nephews like spent the night, and we watched it like 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
But I have fun. Like again, I like animation. Like I just like watching him walk down the street and just seeing how they animate things. So for me, the music playing, just watching him walk around,
does
like
have a fantastic soundtrack.
like basically just the music and just the visuals for me. It's fun, like
Now,
right out of the gate.
They've come a
only-
long way since they've had the title song for
yeah.
the film done by Nickelback
no, but
and
I'll say-
Saliva.
a lot
My
of
wife
movies,
let me know that I liked what's his name that does the music for that or some of that. Oh, what the hell
Is it
his
Post
name?
Malone?
Yeah, she's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, you like Post Malone. I'm like, oh damn it.
Well, the funny thing, I know we're talking about Far From Home, but this is because with MCU and you have like Edgar Wright, who a lot of movies are very soundtrack driven, and
Yeah.
soundtrack as far as actual songs. Guardians of the Galaxy is the same way, and then Spider-Verse comes out, and even though it had a fantastic soundtrack, that every single song that was on the soundtrack was in the movie. Like it didn't really get as praised as much. Which
Well, I
find
think
that kinda
I think a
odd.
difference is because you're dealing with more modern songs being made for the film or for modern
Yeah, but it was still
artists.
great.
It doesn't carry the same like little quirky fun thing as using past hits.
Because everybody's bringing their own thing in those
But
past hits.
where I'm at with this is like, to me, if I had to sit down and watch one of the two, if I'm just
Mm-hmm.
sitting down, I'm probably going to pick Far From Home just because it's easier. It's already there's no storytelling involved.
Well, okay, there's no catch up in origin.
there's no catch up. I get burnt. I do think I have origin fatigue on a lot of these comic book movies,
Which is why they've kind of
introducing-
avoided it in some of these movies.
because that's why like you go back and you watch Spider-Man 1 with Sam Raimi. It's like. Because it's like you have to do the origin, and you go watch Batman. You have to do the origin.
So here's the weird thing about that, though. I was glad they jumped right into Spider-Man with this, only because at the time when he came in, Civil War, when he first came in Civil War, for just a little bit, I was like, okay, I just want to jump into Spider-Man. We've seen so many origin stories in the MCU and
Came
all
out
that.
2002, right? So the first Spider-Man movie.
I'm talking about this
but I'm just saying in general though, because we had Tobey Maguire,
Yes.
you would have Andrew Garfield, and then Tom Holland,
Yes.
all within 14 years of each other, and you didn't win another.
But the messed up thing walking out of this film, I'm like, well, this is a weird thing to feel now that because this Spider-Man is so good, and I love the Tobey Maguire ones, at least the first two.
I love the third
but
one.
because this movie's so good, walking out of this, I was like, man, it's almost a bummer we got robbed of not seeing this origin story.
Yeah.
On some level, like I didn't want it then, but now that I'm like loving the character, I kind of would have liked to seen their take on it. I would have liked to seen him pre Spider-Man. Like we kind of know how he is because thankfully he's been in high school, and he spends so much time not Spider-Man, and as a, you know, what I mean, you kind of know his
I mean,
personality.
if they were going to
still.
just literally do the exact same, he gets bit by a spider on a trip, and
Yeah,
then
you
Uncle Ben
didn't-
dies.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like even if it was the same sort of story, I would have liked to seen Tom Holland. You know, I just would have liked
So
to
here's-
seen a couple
so
scenes
here's-
of that.
here's
I
what-
did not want it back then, but now I'm like, oh, it's a bummer. We'll never get to
If
see
you
that.
were to
Just
make it
maybe in the
today,
flashback
so
scene.
here's
Yeah,
what
he's getting
happens.
so old
Yeah.
now.
He gets bitten by a radioactive spider, and then like in the original comics and the original film, Spider-Man did professional wrestling to take advantage of his powers to make money. So in the new one, he makes his little homemade costume and does spider dances on TikTok, and does like flips and hangs on the wall and hangs upside down and does all that stuff. And then while he's recording in his room, Uncle Ben comes in and sees him like hanging upside down, and he like freaks out, and then he falls down the stairs and breaks his neck or something, like just to make it modern. And then Peter goes down and live streams it on TikTok, and he's like, Uncle Ben's dead.
That would be so annoying to watch in 5 years, though. You're like, oh, remember that TikTok Spider-Man scene?
Well, we just cast Logan Paul as Spider-Man.
Oh,
and
yeah.
give you your movie.
So yeah, for me, I give this probably like a 9 out of 10. Like it is what I wanted out of this film. I honestly, seeing the trailers before, I'm like, I don't even want the Spider-Man stuff. I just want to see him and his classmates on vacation in Europe because I don't know. I just like seeing films set in Europe.
Well,
I've been watching a lot of that stuff recently, like really old films from like 50s, 60s and stuff like that.
Trip?
No, I'm not a big fan of those. So I was like all in on this. I just like seeing films that show different locales. Like you travel through the cinema, and so I was like, I hope they hold off being Spider-Man for a while. And I did get enough of that, and they still jump around. Like I love that element to it. That's what I wanted out of this film. Jake Gyllenhaal was really good. Well, that stuff was fine. I didn't like it as much as the Vulture. I think that worked out better in the first one.
To be fair though, too, like Michael Keaton is.
Well, I'm just saying, like and they can't replicate it, but just the way everything wrapped together in that film, you know what I mean? It just felt so tight, and this feels great. But this is much looser, I think, and that's totally fine. I will say that just based on what these films are trying to achieve, it is kind of the same path as the first one. It's not as special because it is the second one, and it's not even as crazy. Like there's nothing that heightens it too much higher, only that it's like, we already know these characters. We can jump into the fun right away. The relationships, what's his name?
Ned.
No, the guy that bullies him. That's in all of them. Flash Thompson. You know what I mean? Like you already know those relationships.
Which I like the way they changed Flash because like he's not a super like ridiculously in shape jock now. He's just kind of like a guy.
He's not a caricature of a bully. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's
just
like
a kid that has
real
more money
bully
or something.
He's a what do you call him? The guy's I can't think of it now. He's just somebody whose dad's got a lot of money.
Yes,
he's just
a trust fund kid.
Trust fund kid. Yeah, he's a trust fund boy. It's what he is. Like he can only bully people because he has money.
But because of that, it's like this film does what it does, and it can never reach heights of certain films. But I just had a lot of fun. It's exactly what I want to see at the time.
This line of movie,
but I really like that first one. I don't know which one I like more, only because I do like I just love the Vulture so much in that one. The way things wrap up, and I do have a lot of fun with that. I think the music's good in that first one too. I wish there would have even been more of it, but they kept the train going. It was the same train, but they kept it going, and it was for me just as good.
When we get into spoilers in like 5 seconds, there's one thing we'll bring up immediately, which takes this movie over the top for me as far as Deadpool 2 had my favorite post-credit scene of any movie just because it was so ridiculous, and not as far as pushing the narrative forward, but then this one has a post-credit scene that I think was so good.
But the only thing is like, but it's, again, that's just a post-credit. You know what I mean? Like, it's a fun moment to leave on, but as some people complained, like, sometimes these Marvel films feel like they're just big commercials for the next one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
but this one, what I like about it is like, even though it's kind of like that, it's still very tied to this movie.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's not promoting another film. It's not just showing oh, here's a new character.
Yeah.
Here is
no idea, but we didn't, it was just like a fun footnote for me. It's really very cool, but it's not like any sort of payoff right now.
Did you see it coming?
I don't know which one you're talking about, but I didn't see either one coming really.
Okay, well, that's good. I mean,
yeah. So now we'll move into discussing full spoilers for Spider-Man Far From Home. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, we'll discuss plot points that include the post-credit sequences and everything. So you have been warned. But yeah, so the movie, so I guess like kind of going chronologically, once you realize that Mysterio is actually the bad guy, which if you knew anything about the comics, you knew that he was a master of illusion. So it may like I don't think anybody who is really that aware of his character and introduced to him via the comics or the cartoon series or whatever thought that he was going to be a good guy. Because they also teased.
I believe my friend asked me. He said, "Is Mysterio really a bad guy?"
Well, then they also set up like this possible multiverse, which set up for like a real like a Spider-Verse type situation,
or the fact that I was like, oh, are they going to introduce the X-Men through this multiverse? You know what I mean? Like, I like that they played with that.
They pretty much, because they gave everybody all these like things to jump off of, and then you find out pretty soon like
he was just lying.
Nope.
I love that element of it, of kind of the meta level.
Yeah, I think too, that was just like, I think that was just toying with the fan base.
Well, I think that he used, like he said, this is the right story for today's world. So people believe this outlandish story more so than something realistic, because they're so used to everything being heightened.
And it's where the MCU is at right now, too.
Well, I think it's interesting about the Spider-Man, and this is mainly on that because he's so intertwined with Iron Man, is every single villain he has fought
is because of Tony Stark.
Is a byproduct of Tony Stark's shittiness. So, Vulture came from them destroying New York. They hired out a contractor. Then Tony Stark took it over after he made their own mess. That's what made the Vulture mad. This one goes back all the way to Iron Man 1, where they fired Ralphie.
It's almost like in a parody sense. You know what I mean? And it's funny.
You know what, that was Ralphie? I think it's Ralphie from the Christmas
really?
Story. Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't realize that.
But, so it's just all these different people that had been fired from Stark Industries over the years. And Jake Gyllenhaal was the guy who created or Glenn Beck, right? He's the guy who created the technology Stark had made.
Quentin Beck. Not Glenn Beck. That's the right-wing news commenter.
But Quentin Beck, he's the one that made the stuff they use.
The hologram.
Yeah, the hologram they used
or whatever.
It's
like a visualizer of memories or whatever you want.
Yeah, but he called it barf, so it made him upset, and then he fired him. So it's like all of these villains so far have been just byproducts of Tony Stark being kind of a D-bag.
So I think these movies have been, so this one has been like a teen drama, then a Peter Parker film, then a Spider-Man film in terms of like the classic Spider-Man ethos and stories. And that's fine.
Yeah, and people point out like Spider-Man is like a working class hero. He's always, especially in the Tobey Maguire ones, like they really harped on, because he was on his own, that he was just broke as hell. You know what I mean? And like I love that about those films. But in that first one, Not Far From Home, what was it? Homecoming. I love that too, because the villain was kind of a mirror. He was a working class guy who essentially like, hey, he's got to get his. You know what I mean? Like he got screwed over again by capitalism, I guess you want to call it. And so on some level you can like identify like, oh, they're like a good mirror of each other. At least classical Spider-Man, like this Spider-Man doesn't seem like that poor. Him and his Aunt May are fine, but this one, these villains, they're not really Mysterio and his team. They're not like poor at all. They are just you can see a lot of parallels between this and Steve Jobs, maybe, you know what I mean, like a lot of the tech industry and stuff.
Or just imagine if if you've seen The Social Network or know the general story around Facebook's creation, so there's the Winklevoss twins. Like, what if instead of just engaging Mark Zuckerberg in a lawsuit, if they became supervillains?
Yeah.
Harvard-educated rich white dudes becoming supervillains. I mean, so...
But, too, at that point, too, like, these films never really come out front. And, like, is Peter Parker ever... Is the way they've put Tony Stark on a pedestal now, and almost like this Christ-like figure... are they ever gonna and should they ever are they ever gonna reconcile with like, hey man, like, is Peter Parker ever gonna realize, oh man, he kind of sucked quite a bit sometimes? You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing where these films, and I don't know if they should, because they're not here for that. We're here to see just fun times.
They're not going to do a character story about the self-caused problems of the hero.
I mean, it's a weird thing.
They've covered that like loose, because that's what Civil War was about.
But I'm saying now that he's gone, are we going to kind of like, oh, he was cool, he's gone, let's honor him? Like, you know what I mean? I don't think there's really any point in digging back into that. But I kind of think we never like reconciled.
If you think about it, so the Dark Knight Rises, to me the most boring part of the film is where Bruce Wayne's in the self-imposed exile because of the actions of Batman, blah blah blah. So do you want more of that stuff? Which I think was the worst part of that film.
No. I'm saying like, another villain comes in and makes Peter Parker realize, oh, Tony Stark did kind of suck. You know what I mean? That's all I mean.
Well, I think at this point, though, they really should probally get away from making Spider-Man.
I do too. I'm just saying
Iron Man.
That's what stops these films, and they are what they are. But they just, I don't know. I just feel like I can only enjoy them so much, which they give me what I want, but it stops it from ever being a 10 out of 10 just because they are popcorn entertainment and that's all they aspire to be. And that's totally fine, but it is what it is. So it's hard for me to like put this over anything else I've seen this year,
what we're kind of at with the MCU is like, and look, I know I talk about X-Men a lot, sorry, but you're never going to get a Logan-esque movie that is just a singular story that is just what the director and the actor
out of continuity,
that is just pretty much story. This is the story we want to tell. This you're never going to get that in the MCU because they're always pushing a narrative forward. Spider-Man and Iron Man have been intertwined, so there's always going to be some Tony Stark connection. But I do feel like it's the best for the MCU because he's not coming back. He died. So I would like to see this to be the last MCU movie that really has anything to do with Tony Stark
device.
And then outside of this, I would like to see movies move forward. And next question, did Quentin Beck actually die?
Honestly, I forgot. Somebody said, I was like, I did look up. I'm like, oh, wait, people were talking about Sinister Six. And then they said something about Mysterio. I'm like, oh, shit. I thought he died in this movie. So
but
did they show him? Did they show him dying?
They showed him perceived to die. And then
that's right, because they showed his face, right? Because I couldn't even remember.
Talked to the glasses and asked if that was real. And then
but what he said wasn't, is Quentin Beck dead?
No,
he said, is what I'm seeing real?
Yeah.
But that could be practical effects that he set up.
Yeah, because... So
in the movie, they can literally do whatever they want.
Yeah, in the comics, he was more like a movie effects person. Yeah. So
and he's died before pretty similarly and came back. So
everybody, here's the thing: in these types of films, everyone can be dead and can come back.
I mean, there's like ones that are definitively dead.
Yeah, it seems like this is the person to fake their death of all people. Like Vulture, they did not kill off. Scorpion is at that one. Well, and we didn't kind of want the same thing again. So I think it was smart. Like, hey, he's quote unquote dead. And then we can bring him back if we want to.
I did like, too, if you juxtapose the endings of the two films, so in Homecoming, it was that the Vulture realized that Peter Parker is actually like a decent guy and, was looking out for his daughter and stuff. So when he went to prison, he didn't rat Peter Parker out because he realized he was just a kid doing what he thought was right. And then in this movie, Quentin Beck talks about how Peter Parker's a good kid, but then, he's like, well... He almost plays out like he's a good kid, but these things are forcing me to hurt him, and so then he reveals Peter Parker's identity to everybody.
Yeah.
So it's the opposite, whereas the Vulture had a little bit of honor and said, "Oh, you're actually like trying to do the right thing."
And you're talking about post credits, just in case anybody is listening to this.
Yeah, because there was a scene where the guy, I think it was Ralphie from Chris's Story, was talking about, why are you going to play this? He's like, we just don't worry about it. We'll fix it later. So how he fixed it later was, Peter Parker, he villainized Spider-Man.
Well, when you see that character, his henchman character that like pulls the flash drive out of the computer and leaves the building, you assume that's what it is. And you see, so in the film, like we said, so you have like the battle. So I guess in summary, Quentin Beck was using his illusion technology to make it look like there were these quote-unquote elementals that were attacking the Earth that he was stopping, making himself appear to be a hero.
Drones.
So then his plan was to get control of Tony Stark's equipment to be able to make an even bigger Avengers-level threat, utilizing his drones and his technology to make it even bigger looking, so he's even more of a hero and par with the Avengers. And...
a manufactured crisis. Yeah. Some people pointed out that sometimes administrations they manufacture crisis, then they save everybody.
And something else is interesting too. This happened to be like the best time for them because it just after Endgames, everybody was kind of gone, or because Nick Fury, asked him about, and like all these people don't know where they're
Captain
at.
Marvel's out in the universe.
Yeah.
Thor's
out in the universe, and
the Guardians, they've never really came to Earth before anyway.
Yeah, and then Captain America's dead. Iron Man's dead.
Well, Captain America's
They
old.
said he's dead in the movie.
Well, here's the thing. I don't
in
think
the social conscious, he's dead.
I don't think. Yeah, to the reality of the world, I don't think that character is actually dead yet. I think that just everyone they would probably
killed him, William.
They would probably play it close to the vest, and even if I don't think they would say, "Oh, Steve Rogers is alive, but he's 90 years old." Equivalent.
Well, in the movie, they said that he was one of the people. So I'm saying
they probably told everybody he was dead.
Yeah, as far as the world knows, Captain America's dead.
So all the Avengers are gone. Or scattered amongst the out in the wind, and I guess Hawkeye's still around. Why did they make him do it?
Well, because
he can shoot stuff with arrows. But I mean, so you have
he's like, what the hell am I gonna do?
But you have Quentin Beck doing this, and he's being portrayed as a hero, and he gains the confidence of Spider-Man, and befriends him and tries to identify with him on a certain level, and then you get the reveal that he was actually just using technology to make these manufactured threats to make himself a hero. And then Peter Parker's able to stop him. And then he records a video of himself saying that Spider-Man's the one that caused it and that Spider-Man killed him or attacked him. And then, so, after everything's over and you think Spider-Man's won and he actually gets to go and swing around New York with MJ, who actually doesn't like it, which is a reverse of the prior films. Then he's in Times Square, and then the post-credit sequence is you see J. Jonah Jameson come back, played by J.K. Simmons. And he's more of the PS4 video game version where he's like a right-wing conspiracy theorist podcaster type. And
which is funny. They probably unintentionally, but that's where all that's going to end up at. You know what I mean? Like both those things probably came to that conclusion themselves. Like, hey, what would he be in this day and age? He'd be,
because print news isn't big. It's more of talking head media personalities. I mean, honestly, he'd probably be like a YouTube conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, well, that's
Spider-Man's a threat. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, that's how it's kind of. But it's just the fact that they got Simmons back for that role is really awesome to me because, like, for one, I don't know anybody else who's better at portraying him than him, and it's the first time that any prior non-MCU character has reappeared in the MCU as the character they were before.
Weird. You know what I mean? Like, I love it, but it was like not expected because you thought, oh, they're never going to do that. It's almost like, okay, if Hugh Jackman wasn't done, like, oh, well, this means that all bets are off. They could just have Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. You know what I mean? Like, and I know he's supposed to be done, but I'm just saying, like, that breaks some sort of wall that you thought was there that is now broken down, even if it was just a gag and he never shows up again.
So, I mean, I know it's a little bit different, but Chris Evans was Human Torch and then Captain America.
Yeah.
But I'm saying playing the same role.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there's been, I don't know if anybody's played.
That's the only time that anybody's ever played the same role that hasn't happened yet. It's like Sean said, I do think that's kind of... Now, he may not ever appear in it again, or he may, I don't know what they're...
Just have a small cameo.
But it is interesting they did that, and then, now Spider-Man... He was the only Avenger that didn't have a known
public persona.
Now that's gone. So.
Well, and two, I think immediately people can break down. It's like, oh, he appeared at a charity event that was held by May Parker, and that's his.
Well, where all his classmates are at. And two, I thought it was very weird, even though it was a fabrication, in the scene with him and Mysterio after the battle, sitting in the bar drinking.
Yeah,
I'm like, would he not be paranoid that people see him sitting with a costume guy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that is just seemed like he was just way out in the open, and they were just openly talking about the battles and everything. I was like, that's very odd.
I think too, him just being like in the black suit maybe made because I think the one thing that played up in this movie is the naiveness of Spider-Man at this point, because a lot of people are like, why would he do that? Well, in the movie he's supposed to be 16, so he's kind of dumb.
And two, I think it's very smart the way they blended in the different suits to sell more action figures.
Yeah,
they fit in the narrative pretty well.
Yeah,
I wonder if the action figures, instead of saying like Spider-Man's stealth suit, say Night Monkey.
Did you have you seen those? Before the movie came out, I saw the Night Monkey one, and I was like, oh, I guess that's a spoiler, because I thought it was a weapon. The Night Monkey one at Target, I saw it there. He has nunchucks where instead of a chain, it's web. And I was like, is he going to have like web nunchucks? Like, it's two sticks, but the webbing is like the chain.
That's awesome.
And he's like standing there with both those nunchucks in that outfit. And I was like, oh man, is he going to use those in the movie?
Well, if you notice, this is another movie where I don't think Spider-Man throws a punch at someone. Does he punch anyone?
I don't. It's funny because like in the MCU, there's not any good actual hand-to-hand fight scenes outside of like.
Well, you have like Black Panther. Let me finish. So the actual real-world actors fighting each other sequence was well done. Then the CG sequence at the end was a little bit of a mess.
Yeah.
And then like the Captain America film, so. Especially Winter Soldier, there's a lot of really good combat.
Yeah, that's about it.
But a lot of the movies don't have too much actual hand-to-hand combat. But when you think about it, Spider-Man having the superpower, if he's fighting a non-superpowered entity, punching them would kill them.
Or knock them out.
And if he can pick up a car and do whatever, punching someone would kill them. So
like outside of like Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Ant-Man movies, and like Civil War, there's
Black Widow does hand-to-hand all the time.
But we're talking about like what 23, 24 movies. There's maybe like 4 movies that actually have hand-to-hand good fight scenes, and the rest are because like Guardians is all just huge, massive CGI.
Well, and you too,
take a long time to shoot. They'll just do it in the computer.
One, too, I think a lot of times what it seems they've been doing is trying to get directors or writers. They think they're good at handling the character aspects, and I think they have like a second unit that does a lot of the action stuff across all the films to keep it kind of consistent.
Yeah. Which I think at the end of the day, though, like you get somebody like who's the guy that directed Deadpool, John Wick, and a couple is it David Levitch, whatever.
Yeah.
Like he's really good at directing.
Or Leitch.
You're not going to get a guy like that to come in and direct a movie that's really good at hand-to-hand scenes because they're never going to do it.
I mean, I don't know. They've talked about doing some different Marvel films that, well, they kind of ruined the Iron Fist by putting him on the Netflix series that's kind of in continuity of the MCU to some extent. But with the Spider-Man films, I think they've made them fun again.
Oh, yeah.
And then they've done something, too, where they're not retreading the same villains as the prior films. They're not retreading the same scenarios as the prior films. And they've now set up a Spider-Man scenario that we haven't seen in the movies, where the public at large knows his identity. And because I mean, like, so the next film, like the director John Watts, he said that like a villain that he's interested in doing is Kraven the Hunter. So I could definitely see that being a storyline where you would have him come in trying to capture Spider-Man because they see him as a threat. You can also have the element of like how much is Jonah Jameson playing in the next movie is his credibility at the center of people believing the Spider-Man story, because
they might not believe it. He might be able to spin it out. You know what I mean?
It's good. Because we only saw a tidbit, so we don't know
if they'll walk that back. The first Iron Man film ended with him saying "I'm Iron Man," and then the last Spider-Man movie ended with Aunt May finding out it was him. Like, I don't think they're going to walk that back. No.
I think that if anything, they can play out like
they talked about it. I think they said they were maybe going to have that reveal halfway through this movie. Actually, when they were first writing it, they thought, oh, maybe we'll just reveal his identity halfway through and that be part of the story. And they said, no, let's save it to the end. So it sounds like that's something they want to do anyway. So
the next film. So it's always one of those things where like, how excited are you for the next film? And I think that one definitely makes the excitement level go up because you're going to see a Spider-Man story you haven't seen before. And that does leave open the room for like a Sinister Six type scenario. I don't know that anybody would turn to known criminal Adrian Toomes and the Scorpion and whoever else to take down Spider-Man, because at the very least, Spider-Man did help save the planet with the Avengers and stuff. So like, there's proof that happened. I would guess, but I mean,
maybe just the Kingpin will hire them all.
Well, and two, we didn't talk about the about Nick Fury and Maria Hill being in the movie.
We haven't really talked about the movie that much, actually. But we can talk about Nick Fury.
Well, I think what was interesting because at the very end of the movie, it turns out that they were Skrulls. And Nick Fury,
which has really no bearing on the movie.
Yeah, because but it is kind of interesting though when you find that out. Like, there are some scenes where like if it had been the real Nick Fury, how much of that would have actually have happened? Because I think Samuel L. Jackson,
he would have sniffed out.
He would have sniffed it out way earlier. But it is really interesting that because it's
going to be funny to rewatch knowing Sam Jackson is supposedly playing a Skrull, playing himself. If that was the whole plan, because I'm like, my friend had read that spoiler and I said, honestly, even though it's happened, it may be really funny to rewatch and maybe I'll pick up on things, but it could have also been, it has no bearing because it could have also been a situation where they decided after the fact because they said, oh, he's going to be in the next Captain Marvel film or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it literally, that's how much it matters to this story is pretty much not at all. You know what I mean? Like,
it's very
It's just
ancillary.
more just a convenience to say, hey, that he's someplace else. So the next movie, we don't have to explain him getting there. He's just there. But you know what I mean? Like that, which is cool, but
what I kind of like is like, to me, this does not set up the Skrull Secret Wars or whatever the Skrull thing was where they take everybody over, because the Skrulls are still like good. Not that there's not a bad group out there, but there's like certain plot lines I don't really care to see, and having like a Skrull war or something where like they had infiltrated the Avengers. I think that's something that I personally don't care about.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of nice to see that for now, that's not where this is going.
Yeah, because there's a lot of Marvel stuff that's sitting out there that they can make stories out of. But I don't think that's a plot line they'll go down at this point. I mean, I'm trying to think of other stuff about the movie itself.
I mean, so this film starts off with them going on their trip, which, again, I loved all of that stuff. Like, just super fun. You know what I mean? Just like a super fun travel movie. And then, so we have the manufactured crisis of him going through. But the big thing, too, that we didn't talk about was the glasses that is given to him from Tony Stark, which also seem like... and I was trying to think of stuff to talk about this movie because I was like, for me, it's just a popcorn film. Like I'm okay accepting pretty much any of it because I don't need to think about it anymore.
Even Dead, I'm the Hero. That's what the acronym is, Edith.
Yeah, and but you think about the glass and you're like, oh, actually, that's a terrible thing. You know what I mean? It should be destroyed, and it never gets destroyed. But you're also thinking, well, in this world, half the population was wiped out. I guess these weapons should exist. You know what I mean? But in the real world, you're like, no, it shouldn't exist at all.
The only problem with the glasses, though, then it brings in the satellites with all the drones. And it's like, so that existed at some point, so why is either in the battle, because he died, so that had to have existed before he died in that world. So why in the battle of end of Endgame did he not call the drones in?
Well, it's because the infrastructure was still down because of the, I don't know.
But I mean, it had
I don't
to
know.
exist.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just because we were fighting Thanos, not
we were talking about.
But they could have killed the.
We were talking about like where the other Avengers are scattered, and so that's why only Spider-Man deals with this. But honestly, for me, I'm deep in the comics, but it feels like if you're reading a Spider-Man comic, you're not wondering, well, where the hell's Iron Man at if this is such a big deal. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's just one of those things. Like these are just these are they take themselves seriously enough, and that's why they are so great. But at the same time, I walk in, enjoy it, and walk back out. You know what I mean?
The one thing that I think that causes issues with these is when you ask those questions, you don't ask, like when you're watching Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, that wasn't a question because they didn't exist.
Yeah.
Or you watch an X-Men movie, it's like, why is there no other, why is the Spider-Man? Because in that universe,
it's a
only
weird thing
exist.
it's a weird question we ask in these movies, or in the comic books you don't ask as much.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I think
or even
it's
if you're
just
playing a video game where like those characters exist, you're not really
you're like
asking that.
Yeah, in the
think
Spider-Man
it's just
game, you're like,
that-
where's everybody at? Like, well, this is Spider-Man's game, so he's not going to be in
Yeah.
it. But they've just really intertwined this stuff.
Well, I
to
think
where
a
it's
lot of it is logically when you show people come together to fight a certain level of threat and another threat on equal footing shows up, why wouldn't they also come back
Yeah, because
together?
you would think, that like
And-
Doctor Strange would be around enough, like, oh, there's all this crazy stuff going on in Europe. Let's go over there.
Yeah.
But
it's also if they had those other characters involved, the illusion falls apart immediately, and there's no.
But
moving.
then I would assume the MCU is pretty smart, so it'll probably when the next Doctor Strange movie comes out, there's going to be there's always
so much explanation because
Well,
they're
two,
juggling so many things.
They've
right
also
now.
to this point, like if you were to go back and watch every single film and try to piece together the mythology and the connections and stuff, it probably doesn't all fit together.
no because you can't.
So, but that's fine.
You can retroactively make it fix working together, but if you make like Thor Dark World, they couldn't have known in 2013 that that they were going to be doing this.
Yes, I mean I think a lot of it, but like in terms of the movie itself, like all the performances are good. I think Tom Holland does a good job. And I like that they're having with MJ, they have Zendaya do something completely different than any of the other female protagonists in those films.
The kid who grew up 5 years older that is now pining for Mary Jane, it was funny, and him walking in on Spider-Man thinking that he's a male escort or whatever. It was very funny. Like I loved all those bits. I'm trying to think because honestly, when it starts getting into a lot of the action stuff, it's fine. I enjoy it, but. The stuff I enjoyed most is just the interaction with his classmates and the rivalry and the friendship.
Or when MJ figures out he's Spider-Man.
Actually, one of the cooler MCU things I thought was his first real interaction with Mysterio as a villain when he's with the fake Fury, because it's not even Fury's not even there.
Yes.
And then you go through that entire scene where you actually get to see like the Mysterio stuff that you remember from the comic. I didn't read the comics, but the TV show. So I thought that was really cool. And then you get the zombie Iron Man and like just Mysterio coming out as a real full villain. I think that was actually
what Spider-Man video game? It wasn't the new one, was it, William, or was it Spider-Man 2? There was one Spider-Man video game when. Or am I thinking of the Batman one?
So there was I think in Spider-Man 2 there was a Mysterio section
where he has like you're about to fight him and he has a full life bar and it goes all the way up and you walk and hit him once and then it goes all the way down because like the whole gameplay is all that like fantasy stuff. But it is a very cool thing. But also he's just a person,
In the PS4 game you just have like a character that's dressed as him that's not him.
That's
obviously
the Halloween segment, right?
Yeah.
That game's really good. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else to talk about with it, because there's so many things it doesn't reckon with as far as just the implication of I don't know, the moral elements of the glasses, and also like, oh yeah, I could see why Jake Gyllenhaal, Mysterio was pissed off, but also they play him crazier than the Vulture almost. Like the Vulture, yeah, he's a killer. He's not a good person, but Mysterio just seems a little bit like a whiny crazy person. You know what I mean? Like, because he even turns on all of his friends
and named it Barf.
Yeah.
Like he had the weakest of the, but I think he was just a crazy guy.
So I think,
which I enjoyed. Yeah,
but I think that post Thanos is having a really fun villain. He's one of the most fun villains they've had in a long time.
Yeah.
Because he's a far more charismatic and fun villain than what you saw in like Captain Marvel, or
pretty much. Well, I would say any of the Iron Man movies except for Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 I like the villain stuff in that because they did have a lot of fun with it.
A lot of people are afraid that they were going to go the route of Iron Man 3 and take a comic book character's name and then make a movie that doesn't reflect the reality of that character at all.
Yeah.
But Iron Man 1, the villain, as much as I like him,
the Ironmonger or whatever,
he was fun too. They took it very seriously with Whiplash, or is that his name?
Yeah,
whatever. It's very
Hammer.
seriously, but really, it's like whatever. He's not really that funny. He was funny in those scenes when he's like, Mickey Rourke was supposed to be a computer expert. Like that was funny with him and Sam Rockwell. Like I like all that stuff.
There's like the cool scene where like he's driving the race car and he gets he had the suitcase suit. Like there's
a lot of times they really try to build him up to where it's like, oh my god, they're such a threat and they're like cold-blooded killers. But this was like, this guy, he doesn't mind about people dying, but at the same time it has a lot of fun to it. And even though it's quote unquote serious, like, it's the fun I want out of a Spider-Man film. You know what I mean? Like they kept that balance and they did not try to go any direction too hard and taking it more seriously or feeling like it's a bigger threat, but it's just fun.
The reveal scene. So like after Peter leaves the bar where he gives the Edith glasses to Quentin Beck, Mysterio, and then you drop the illusion and all the people are there. Then you start going through the backstory of how everybody was slighted and stuff with all the flashbacks. Like that was really fun.
Yeah.
And that's the type of thing you don't get in those movies too often.
I think one thing too I really like about this is like the previous Spider-Man movies. Well, I'm not going to say Amazing Spider-Man because they had the Lizard Doctor and the
Kirk
Electro
Connors.
And Rhino, right?
Yeah, Rhino.
I've only seen,
that was just
and Harry Osborn as a Green Goblin.
I've never seen Rhino, what he looks like in the film. I've only seen those set pictures of Paul Giamatti in the Rhino suit with his head down here and the thing up there. That's all I've seen.
And that was literally in like the post-credit sequence for like 3 seconds.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
he was in the movie.
No, it was very short. But like, what I like about these Spider-Man movies is so far, like Mysterio and Vulture are like B, C level villains. Like those aren't top tier. But Spider-Man has such a good Spider-Man is the closest thing they have to Batman as far as the villains.
The Rogues Gallery.
Yeah, they have a really good Rogues Gallery, and
and they don't. I don't think they want to redo the villains that have already been on screen. So we're not going to see the Green Goblin, Doctor Octopus.
I want to see Green Goblin one day, though. I'm not saying the next one, but if they do like a Sinister Six,
or at least
I don't know who's in that. Is Green Goblin in Sinister Six?
I mean, there's different iterations with different characters.
Like maybe we get to that point and then we get Green Goblin, but it's like, how long is Tom Holland going to play Spider-Man?
He said that he would play it indefinitely. Now the problem
he's saying that right now.
Yeah.
I mean, when he gets 30, he might realize, hey, I want to go in a different direction.
Kind of like Chris
you know what
Evans
I mean?
with,
I totally understand that. He may want to flex his wings.
You look at it. The way I look at it is like, well, you have the contract issue with Marvel. They have one movie left with the Spider-Man. So unless they renegotiate, and really just a handshake deal. So at any point in time, Sony could be like, we're done. But Sony's making more money off the Spider-Man franchise right now with Marvel involved. That I don't know why they would do that.
Because Venom made about as much money, or as in the same ballpark.
Yeah, I mean Venom made a lot of money, and my thing is like,
I don't know that's sustainable though.
It depends on if the second one's any good, because like the first one, I think people just wanted a Venom movie.
Oh, they still did a second one. I forgot.
Oh yeah, it made so much money they're going to make us.
Well, and they did.
I need to watch that. I think it's on HBO. Maybe
it's good enough. I mean, it's like good. Like a lot of people trash Spider-Man 3, but you go back and watch it, and it's probably the most fun to rewatch of the Raimi ones because it just so like they just did whatever they wanted to do.
And I think it's just they gave a bad portrayal of Venom, and the other villains, like Sandman's fine.
Sandman would have been a very interesting movie.
If they had pulled Venom out of that film and just had the conclusion of like the Harry Osborn stuff with maybe Sandman as a minor villain.
Real quick, I was talking about the Venom movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I was like making sure.
Yeah. Now the Venom movie,
I enjoyed
that's what I was
it. Like,
talking about.
they're definitely making a sequel because it made so much money.
Yeah. And it did really well internationally.
and they have everybody
Tom Hardy.
locked in.
Is he signed back on for the sequel?
Yeah,
Well, I'd assume at this point in time, whenever you sign on for any of those franchises, you're not signing on for a single film. You're signing maybe it's like one film with options for sequels that it's their control.
Yeah. One thing I think is funny too is like you listen to. I know like the Avengers stuff probably takes a lot more toll on people as far as like doing it because like Robert Downey Jr. is in how many movies and over 10 years, but then like at the same time Hugh Jackman was Wolverine for 17 years and like the amount of bitching he ever did about that role was like
none.
Did you see the Gwyneth Paltrow with John Favreau?
Where she didn't realize that she was in Homecoming.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Yeah. She's like, what? She's like, we weren't in that movie. We weren't in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah.
And she also didn't know that she had done anything with Sebastian Stan too, where he was
She's like,
talking
yeah,
about
who's
it.
Sebastian Stan?
Yeah.
But I mean, I totally to some extent, I do understand that if you're working on projects that are like code names at the time, and you're filming Homecoming around the same time as Infinity War and Endgame. And
Well, people were saying they just fly people down to Atlanta and they shoot a bunch of stuff, and they're like, I don't know.
Yeah, like, you
we're
don't know.
there or not. Yeah, we don't. I only get like this 2 pages of lines I have for this post-credit sequence or the end of the film, and I have no idea.
Or sometimes it could be you get like 2 pages with a bunch of redactions in your lines.
Or who knows how much stuff they film just to film it, just to throw people off and never put it in a movie.
Because they have had scenes in trailers for Spider-Man and other films that didn't end up in the movie.
So it's funny though that you can do that much stuff and then realize you're like never in the movie or even met the actor.
Yeah. Well, earlier you were talking about something about people pausing a film and seeing people and realizing they're in it. I don't know what were you talking about.
So there's a scene when Peter first gets
in this movie.
Yes, in this film, and early on when he's going to buy the necklace from the shop when they first get to Italy, Quentin Beck is in the background. Jake Gyllenhaal is actually like the actor on set doing it. So
Wait,
he's
what do you mean the actor on
So like
set?
when Peter's walking around, like one of the people in the background that looks at him is Jake Gyllenhaal.
Oh, okay. So he's just got his eye
so
on
Quentin
him.
Beck is was I guess like waiting in Italy for Peter to get there before he kicks off the Hydro Man elemental.
Okay.
So he was actually stealthily just so it's layered enough where if you rewatch it, if you even notice that, it does probably play. And that there's little breadcrumbs throughout the movie that what you're seeing isn't real. So he's actually in the background watching early on.
Because I mean, the whole plot is them doing this just to get those glasses, basically.
And then it makes sense
And to
why.
make him a hero.
And then it makes sense why the elemental stuff didn't happen until Peter got to Italy because they were waiting for him to get there.
Yeah.
Because they knew of his connection to Iron Man and all that stuff. So there's like cool moments like that. So I'm sure that movie probably plays pretty well in reverse if they thought things out that well. Because a lot of movies you get a twist and you rewatch them like there's nothing that supports this. This is just for story. This doesn't stack up. But yes, like that was a fun moment. And it's just I'm glad to see they were doing movies in this vein that are fun, that probably are more of like the comic cartoon version with all these different characters popping in and out, as opposed like the Raimi movies. He was the only one in the universe, so it did make it more too where he's alone and doesn't have support because he's got these powers and he can't really confide in anybody else, and it's like dealing all of it alone. So that does make a different story than somebody being in a world in which there are a lot of people with powers and you're just kind of later to the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, do we have too much else to cover? Or?
I don't know.
I know. I mean, when he was swinging around New York at the end, I was like, oh, I'm actually ready for another New York Spider-Man movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I love seeing the travel stuff, but it's like, all right, I'm ready to see another one of these. Like, because I also love New York, that they're mostly set in New York. You know,
like everyone.
But I also like this break of again the travel stuff. And exactly what I wanted. It made me so excited for this film. But now I'm like, okay, cool. I want to see this kind of change Spider-Man, and the world's changed, and now let's have fun swinging through New York, because that's always very, very cool just seeing him swing around.
If this breaks $1 billion, I think it'd be the first time Marvel released 3 movies in a year that all broke $1 billion.
Well, it's Sony that released it. Marvel was just involved.
Yeah, but I
Was
think
Captain Marvel the other one?
billion, yeah. So in Endgame, so it'd be interesting to see like the future of this stuff, because like Marvel apparently isn't going anywhere for a while because they continue to put out successful stuff. And
So what's next from the Marvel films? We got Doctor Strange 2.
the next slated is the Black Widow.
Because they're shooting that now, I think.
Can't believe they're making that film.
Well,
So-
yeah, it's-
And not because I don't like Black Widow, just because of her dying then. It's seeming, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on here?
because is it going to be in the past? And it's,
But even still, like, why? You know what I mean? Now that she's dead.
this is the first movie that they've made where I could see it not doing very well, because I don't think that
You
there's
hate women.
No, because this is a movie that they like have probably taken maybe 10 years.
They should have made
overdue.
this back in 2010.
Post
To
Iron
be
Man
fair,
2.
though, they've been working on it because they were working on Captain Marvel in 2012 or something. They said,
Yeah.
you know.
But it's just one of those things where it's like now that her character arc in Endgame, she's dead.
Well, I mean, but
So-
it does take a long time. But then on the flip side, Spider-Man went from being not even on the table to something that happened in the course of like a year of discussions, and the movie was out.
Unless if she was just a Skrull in Endgame and it was a Skrull that died, and she was actually with Nick Fury, and
That's a huge cop out.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm very interested to see what they do with that film. So anyway,
Yeah.
we have a Black Widow film coming out for sure.
and they haven't
That's the
rele-
next.
They haven't released anything else.
That's it. But aren't they working on Doctor Strange too?
So we know that
I
there'll
think
be
I've seen the
maybe.
right.
So I think I've heard discussions. There will be a Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah.
There'll be a Captain Marvel 2. There'll be another
Okay.
Black Panther. There'll be another Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay, yeah, which should probably maybe have Thor in
and
it,
their internals.
and then another Spider-Man signed on, right?
Well, I think that if the Spider, I think the way it works is
Eternals. Who's doing that? Is that Ava?
It's a female director. I'm not for sure.
DuVray? Is she doing that?
But then like because Spider-Man 3, they had a deal for 6 movies. That was their 5th, so they have at least one more Spider-Man in that content. I'd say if it continues to be successful, they might extend it.
no. So it's Chloe Zhao who's on board for the Eternals.
But I know that's one.
So again, all they have to do is, which I brought this up before. It's like, okay, they're gonna, if they want to get out of the contract with Sony at the end of this movie, he just hangs up the Spider-Man thing and becomes Iron Man.
There you go.
We don't need the suit, but then again, I don't know. Yeah, I hope they sign on for some more.
Yep. So I think that'll wrap up our discussion of Spider-Man.
Very
Homecoming.
loose discussion. I think Spider-Man in general is more apt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because we're not discussing the craft of those films, I mean, it's more just about like the experience. But the next episode, we'll be discussing Final Destination, the original film from 2000, not any of the sequels. I mean, we might discuss some of the sequels in there, but it's primarily just for the original Final Destination, because I think the entire series is on Netflix now, at least in the U.S. So,
Are they remaking that?
I've heard of it.
I've heard
Are they rebooting
I've
it?
heard rumors.
I guess we'll talk about that next
Yeah.
podcast.
yep. So that'll bring. Oh, I guess before we close, make sure if you're listening via iTunes, leave a review. That helps other people find the podcast. We always enjoy seeing any commentary or anything you have to say on YouTube, or you can email us at podcast@housebythestore.com. You can find links on the website to all the stuff we're doing, to all the short films and everything we got going on. Make sure to follow us on social media, on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, all those places. And if you want to find us specifically on the internet, you can find me on Instagram at @TheWilliamCaps.
Find me at Capsteric.
And I'm at Blevin Sean on Twitter.
Question?
I was thinking, like, I've had a million things run through my mind. Okay.
Yeah, so that'll bring
Peace out.
Yep, that'll bring this episode of the House Video Store podcast to a close. Thanks for listening.